Hello, everyone out in Iconic Land. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Iconic production. We are not actually playing Torg tonight. Tonight is our iconic holiday party, where we invite all of you to come join us and hang out and talk about the games that we love. And joining us tonight is the irascible JD, who has joined us on several games this year, which is always enjoyable. And so, JD, welcome. So tonight we're just going to hang out. We're going to talk about games. We're going to talk about some of our favorite moments from this year in Iconic, but we're also going to talk about some of our favorite moments in gaming, period. And we actually have three different people from the Patreon wrote in and have shared their favorite gaming stories that we're also going to share on stream tonight.
We're do dramatic interpretations.
Yes, Gabe actually has his PhD in interpretive dance, and so tonight you will get to witness his dramatic reenactment of all of these. I can't promise that any of the previous statement was true, but
I mean, I'll do it. It'll just be off screen.
it will be off screen. We'll just ooh and ah and like make people jealous that they
Oh,
can't.
that'll be fun for them.
But what everyone wants in a Twitch stream.
Yeah.
It could happen off screen that seems far more interesting than what is happening on screen. So we're going to start with Jenny because I just feel like calling on Jenny.
Well, this actually works out because I wanted to tell a funny story about that specifically. This is not to do with what we were talking
I
about,
feel like
but
he's pointing at me.
I was.
I'm not sure if you mean me.
For years, I've been worried that I'm in a Truman Show situation ever since the Truman Show came out, as everyone has been. And there were times where I would worry about that as a child, and my sister would be like, Jenny, you just spent the last hour sitting on the couch watching Seventh Heaven, which I didn't actually like that much, but I watched it every day because I couldn't watch Gilmore Girls. Do you think that the viewer, like, that there would be an entire TV show of people watching you watch TV? Yeah. Not them watching TV, them watching you watch TV, and that's what that made me think of. Sorry, we can get back on
And
topic.
then she
What's
went
up?
on to invent Twitch.
I was gonna say.
There you go.
Made me a little nervous.
Jenny, don't feel bad. Sometimes I radio edit myself, so I'll be like, "Oh, these people, oh God, I swear." And my son, I usually do it when my son is with me because obviously I don't want to swear, but I do enjoy colorful language like George Carlin does. And he once said to me, Daddy, do you notice that sometimes it sounds like you're gonna cuss, but then you've been edited? And I said, yes, I learned to do that. It's called a radio edit. A man named Kid Rock taught me. And he said, well, good, because I was afraid that maybe we were like in a simulation and you were being edited by outside forces.
Wow. Bringing the existential doom.
Wonderful.
And he hasn't seen Truman Show,
Something
Figured it out on his
real
own.
there.
Yeah.
What was the Nobel Prize they just handed out for someone who just determined that apparently we're living in a simulation?
We could be living. in this
Yeah.
simulation.
Like apparently they had proof, and that's what they got the Nobel Prize for. So
What?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Oh.
Tonight on the Iconic
Cross the line.
Existential dread.
That's what Christmas is all about.
So, Jenny, you're relatively
Okay.
new on the spectrum of all of our gamers here to gaming. You started playing D&D
Mhm.
with Gabe. Would you mind starting us off by sharing one of your favorite moments from gaming?
So one of my favorite moments, I've played a lot of different games with Gabe. He's always run some amazing amazing games for us. One of my favorite moments, though, was early on in one of our longer D&D campaigns. There was another guy who played with us, and I was playing this half-orc and this half-orc barbarian who just wanted to be loved, but and he just wanted to be beautiful, and like thought and kept talking about how beautiful she was and was jealous of the character played by another one of our friends. That was a side part. She was mostly just tough. But I really liked one of the other people that we played with. His character called my character ugly at one point, and I thought it would be really funny if my character slapped him. And so my character slapped his character, and I forgot how strong my character was, and also how weak that character was, and he sustained a lot of damage.
Did you kill?
No, but he needed like a lot of healing. It was probably like 2/3 of his hit points.
Nice.
Just like that angry slap at calling me ugly.
Should have raged first.
So yeah, just thought it'd be funny, slapped him, he almost died, and then for unknown reasons, he stopped playing with us a few sessions after that.
Completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mr. Furious, by the way. And by the way, if anybody in chat wants to add a story, Ben will be willing to read all of the stories that get put into chat tonight.
Both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
In an English accent.
Yeah, that seems appropriate. So we've got one from Padre, who shows up to a lot of behind the screens. And interestingly enough, in the middle of one of my behind the screens, this was the most surreal experience. Not going to a con and having people recognize me, not realizing that the Greg that is in the chat is the Greg who wrote Torg. No. Most surreal experience was in the middle of one of my behind the screens, this guy Padre, who'd been showing up a couple of times, was like, hey, how do you know Calvin? Calvin's a buddy of mine in Colorado Springs I've been gaming with for like a decade. I was like, better question, how do you know that I know Calvin? He's like, well, I noticed the name, you thanked him in Jackals. I got the book, thank you. He's like, I went to college with him and he ran our West End game Star Wars game. Completely random set of occurrences. But he sent in a end of year role-playing message to read on the show. So he's not able to watch it live, but Padre, hopefully when you watch this, this will be awesome for you. So his favorite moment, he has two favorite moments. One's from the stream, which was awesome. His favorite moment from the streaming this year has to be the end of the Deadlands game and the beatific look on JD's face when Sister May accepted her fate. It was a very poignant moment and completely in character, and I loved it. From his own games this year, it's a toss-up. Two moments stand out from the first Rise of the Rune Lords campaign I was running before he switched to Torg. One character cooked up and ate the wings of a demon they encountered, and then made him roll vigor until he failed and grew useless wings. I like how you wrote it, until he failed. That is the way to go. The second is the one player used his spells to lift himself high enough into the air to urinate on Lamashu's altar, I assume to defile it. However, when they entered the final dungeon, I hit the characters a -1 penalty on all rolls as they felt something continually dripping on them throughout the entire dungeon. Turns out Lamashu kind of saved all that and made it down to the players. All actions have consequences. That is
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Mwah.
Yeah, just from everyone at Iconic, some good stuff. Anybody want to share a story either from this year, like favorite moment, something fun that happened this year in gaming, or from just your? I had prepared 30, so
You got a roll table?
I do. I've got a roll table.
You got a P30?
Not my first rodeo. Playing DCC. I don't have.
I mean, we could.
Yeah.
Well,
Go for it. Yeah.
I was struggling because I've been playing for only about 10 years.
All right. Well, we got like 90 minutes, so like.
But it sort of blends together, and the stuff you remember tends to be not very funny. It tends to be a little more, at least for me, a little more poignant, like characters dying, which, as you well know, happens.
That's just because you're a better human being than us, Ben.
You mean like when some arrogant elf gets drunk on poisoned wine and ends up ends up wounding you.
Yeah.
Your character that you have fallen deeply in love with, and he stands up to a Nazgul, and the turn before reinforcements arrive because of that dumb elf. It's fine. It's fine.
So okay, so we're playing the One Ring, right? Which is a really excellent adaptation of the Lord of the Rings Middle Earth. It's set in between The Hobbit, at least the initial early one, the first one done by Cubicle 7. It's set between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings in those years when things were just honestly going like total crap in Middle Earth. And so I'm playing an elf. He was an extraordinarily dumb elf. He was a wandering elf. Amras the Red. I would constantly write terrible poems with him. At one point, he wrote a poem about mushrooms. There are references to marshmallows and other edible things that should not be eaten. But
Marshmallows should be eaten.
but the things he was describing were not in fact marshmallows.
Oh, like marshmallows.
Right. There was a
Dead
fungal troll. And
Go for it. Yeah, we don't need to keep.
anyway, so we went to this feast, and there were intrigue at the feast. People were being poisoned. Amras, however, had the severe misfortune to drink first the poisoned wine, which made him slightly mad. Gave him excessive shadow, which of course causes your rolls to be worse, and then randomly happens to drink, while searching for the other poisoned wine, happens to drink the other poisoned wine, because apparently there's 2 poisoned wines in this feast. The result is he is completely susceptible to anything. We go out to the forest chasing a character who has stolen a magic lamp, the magic lamp that protects the woodmen from the encroaching darkness. We encounter a Nazgul, which of course causes my character to go completely mad, and then I proceed to accidentally, on purpose, murder JM's character.
That's fine.
Well, here's the thing. So, we bury JM's character with honors. He has a magic dragon killing spear, right? It's an elven spear from days gone past. Let's fast forward about 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
3 years in actual playtime. Another elf I'm playing. For the record, every single one of my elves I've ever played in this game died. I'm playing another elf, a high elf this time. We're going after the Dragon of Mirkwood.
Mm-hmm.
The Dragon of Mirk, and basically we need a leg up on this creature because if you're familiar, the dragons of Tolkien's dragons are awful. They will burn your town to the ground. And there's one that lives in the woods. So we're going to get a dragon killing spear. The only one we actually know of is buried in the How with JM's character. So, as in keeping with ancient sagas, we go to the How, we summon the spirit of JM's former character, and try and bargain with him to give us the spear. He declines because he's still pissed off. And,
Richard reached out to me and was like, "Hey, this is what's going on." Oh, cool.
Yeah.
yeah, so we take it anyway because screw that guy. The problem is, basically, upon encountering the Mirkwood dragon and wielding the spear, apparently my character's spirit switches places with his character's spirit in the grave.
Now it's sweet high elf.
And I'm dead. Ish. Like, I'm laying there without being able to move, looking at, his skull. He then proceeds to die while in my body, and the spear is lost. But not before we actually get the...
You lost my spear?
Yes.
Things that were not shared with me earlier.
But not before we get
Won that spear.
the venom antidote passed off to our friends and saved the day. And we actually did not kill the Mirkwood dragon. That was actually a task which was given to my arch nemesis of the entire game, who proceeded to do it. And by doing so, he died heroically, my arch nemesis. That bastard. Mogdred.
That's the sweetest revenge I think I could have.
I once tried to kill him at a political assassination. I went against the entire party and tried to kill that guy.
I want you to know I was behind you all the way, even though I knew it would kill your character. Partially because you were right, and partially because I wanted your character.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
And not to get political, but 2016 election just totally broke me. I was more invested in the election in our game that made this Mogrid ruler of the Woodmen than I was in the U.S. And the fact of the matter was, he was like this former bandit king, this total strongman who was going to basically create a monarchy in this otherwise fairly egalitarian society. And I was not having it. He won anyway. It was a bad time.
It was a bad time.
And then I failed to kill him when I tried to do so. So, good times.
Is he another character or an NPC?
He was an NPC.
Okay.
Yeah, he was my, like, across multiple characters, he was my nemesis.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
So before we go any further, there is a announcement that we have to make. It is Becca's birthday.
Oh, hey!
So I
Happy
figured we
birthday.
would announce it on stream. Becca, happy birthday.
Happy birthday!
I told you it was going to happen.
You did. Thank you for warning me and for doing so.
You had one chance to say no. You did not take it. So happy birthday to Becca. Becca fan club forever.
Thank you. Thank
Would you like to share a story, either from the Tor game or one of your favorite moments in gaming?
Oh, I mean, sure. It's one of those things where I feel like I haven't been gaming long, but when I start to list out what games I have actually played in, the list is really long. I've done almost everything. But in just thinking about the gaming, I would say there's one from my original D&D game that I ran with friends that I tricked and lied into playing with me. But that's neither here nor there because they all love to play now, so it's worth it. But it was my friend Lucy's character. She was playing a tiefling witch while we were doing essentially the Ravenloft Strahd von Zarovich campaign in order to free a friend, like one of the characters' homelands, from the vampire's influences. And they get to Barovia and they think that they're going to set up camp, and my friend Lucy decides she's going to do some scouting. And she has this really cool bat wing cloak that she charmed into a shopkeeper giving her one day. So she transforms into a bat, flies off into the woods, and comes upon a campfire that has a man sitting next to it. She resumes her original form, meets the guy, finds out it's Strahd, and then she goes, okay, cool, I leave. And I go, great, how do you leave? And she goes, well, I turn into a bat. And I go, well, you can't, because you can only turn into a bat once every night, and you've already done that. And just to watch the horror across her face and then everybody else at the table as they realize she's stuck in the middle of a forest and she didn't tell anybody where she was going with the vampire they're all set to kill. She did her best role playing that night as she convinced Strahd that she was madly in love with him and he shouldn't kill her because to do so would mean ruining a potential suitor. Yeah, and she essentially talked the entire night to keep Strahd from killing her.
Becca ran an amazing 5th edition game, and to quote Chevy Chase, I won Dungeons and Dragons, and it was advanced. Because I
You did.
totally won the Curse of Strahd, but I'm going to let Becca tell that story later. Before we go any further, Ben, would you read Mr. Furious's moment from his Torg game?
All right. My apologies to Mr. Furious in advance.
You're going to do a voice, or you're going
No.
That'd be fun.
In my home, see,
Torg?
we're already off the tracks. In my home Torg game, we have some most excellent and desperate moments. But my favorites so far were A, an act-ending showdown through a scene-long chase across all of Cairo, in the Cairo metro station under construction. The station was the end of the line, but contained a lot of construction supplies, fuel for heavy equipment, and about 10 tons of TNT. Naturally, of course, a fire broke out. The scene ended with one of those movie shots with the heroes walking away from the station as the entire underground station exploded into the sky.
I assume none of you looked back because cool guys don't look at explosions. They blow things up, walk away.
Which, for the record, that the moment when Brother Block rides the Zeppelin into one of Dr. Mobius's bases, that was a formative moment in the Fate 5's origins.
Definitely formative.
Speaking of Brother Block, I believe, Ben, you have a Christmas poem to share. First of all,
Dude,
Peg has arrived. Chris, good to see you here. Howdy, everybody. We're just doing our holiday episode. We're hanging out. We're having drinks and cookies and talking about gaming. All right, Ben, would you care to grace us with a Christmas poem?
yes. We were told that tonight was coming, and so we were able to prepare statements. So I wanted
With our lawyers
the-
present.
for the video deposition, I wanted to give tribute to my Thursday night tour game. Obviously, I have stories about the Fet 5 that I've the story of the Bends.
You are stories about the Fet 5.
I will tell later the story of how the Bends met and how you became a head chef. But
an excellent moment as well.
but as far as on Thursday nights I get to play a home tour game, and I get to play with the already accredited Mr. Furious, who plays in the game with me. And I probably wouldn't be doing this at-home tour game if it wasn't for Iconic. So I wanted to give a shout out to those people and also kind of pimp them into having to watch this. So this is my night before Torgmas poem. Okay. 'Twas decades without Torg, and I thought of it none, for I had not played it since 1991. But then came the dreaded pandemic years that kept us at home and filled us with fears. Friendships became private text message discussions. It was then I discovered Iconic Productions. The reboot of the game was news to me, and now they called it Torg Eternity. Weekly watching each Horseman episode, I'd suggest in the chat which things should explode. And then, to my surprise and childlike glee, my TV, well, JM, spoke back to me. I joined Patreon and Discord because I was curious. It was there I met the famed Mr. Furious. He watched and chatted each week also. Online we argued, is Lapis really Lady Salvo? Eventually I was invited to play on the team of B, and also at Christmas time, Bureau G. Yet for more Torg did I yearn, so online GMing I tried hard to learn. To find players, though, I had to beg, so I asked Mr. Furious, whose first name is Greg. He agreed, and I searched for others, ads for comrades, sisters, and brothers. Replies and requests in did they trickle. David asked, can I take signature vehicle? I am a man that to all whims shall cater, and thus was born the Scarlet Saber. Of its beauty, Captain Scarlet does not gloat. Still all marvel at the enchanted dwarven flying longboat. Alan plays Jackalarius, a roguish magician. His similarity to Constantine is chance and above suspicion. Ian is Yukiko, a Pan-Pacifica influencer and star. He seriously has a mocap anime avatar. Our speedster Eusebio is played by Will, an assassin trained from birth to kill. Eric's Major Reverend Dan is here to heal and remind the others not to murder and steal. Wrathman and now Brawler is the worst of the bunch. He once rolled glory on a sucker punch. At the Battle of Amelienborg Palace, the grounds were panic and chaos and malice. But the Scarlet Saber stayed in the skies firing cannons of grape shot at undead Viking skeleton guys. Wrathman used a chimney to contain a priest. When the anchor peeled off the roof, he was released. He crossed the river, and within an hour, that old cyber priest breached the plant of nuclear power. Close to the core, his body did explode, but was miraculously changed into holy code. In the plant's structure and tech, it's now imbued, the decay subdued, and Copenhagen's safety renewed. Some say it was by the Scarlet Saber, some say it was just by luck. But Wrathman knows it was Eben Scrux.
Amazing.
If I had a hat, I would take it off.
Well,
Speaking of, if I may just interrupt, Tank the Frank, good to see you, buddy. We will be back to Savage Rifts in January sometime. That was one of my favorite notes that we'll be coming back to. Ben, that was amazing.
Phenomenal.
Well done, sir.
and excellent delivery. That was awesome.
I think we're all in agreement that Brother Block just needs to do all of our iconic recaps for the Torrid games, right?
I mean, if he's got that in the tank, he's been holding on.
That's
Well, I do better when I write my own material.
But speaking of Bureau G, next week we will be doing our Torgsmiths Day episode. It's an annual tradition on the Iconic Production channel. Bureau G will be back for a Christmas kaiju story. Careful, you may shoot at Zion. So, each year I match up Pan Pacifica with a famous Christmas story or movie, and I think you might know which one I'm going with next.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
That's right. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's an iconic part of Muppet Christmas Carol.
Stuffing everywhere. Just as far as the eye can see is a carnage of puppets.
After
From Here's
all,
to Act
it's
3.
only one more
Diamond.
sleep till Christmas.
So, jumping in, one of our big things that we got to do this year was to run the Horror at Headstone Hill, which was a Deadlands game for Pinnacle Entertainment Group, which was just amazing. And JD got to play that. She was our sister May, and we did a Savage Rifts game, which we're going to be coming back to, which had Chris in there, and Tank the Frank, and JD, and John too. So yes, JD was our nun with the gun. So JD, let me ask you this. I'll ask you other questions later, but right now I'm dying to know, what was your favorite part of playing the Deadlands game?
Gosh, it's hard to narrow it down to just one moment. I think that I don't usually play things that don't do damage. And so it was a very foreign experience for me to go into a game where I'm, I guess, more equivalent to a mage or something that has support levels. So I think that was probably my favorite part, was just learning and supporting other people, but also just really giving the nun finger to as many people as possible and having that work. It was great.
How did you feel about the ending where you died?
I honestly never have a problem dying in a game. I think that
How many characters did you bury in an accident?
6.
You don't have a problem insofar as you don't mind it, or it
Neither.
just happens
It
very
happens very
easily.
frequently, though. Wait, Christine.
I don't mind it at all. I went to a talk once at a convention by Tracy Hickman, and he talked about holding on to your characters very loosely, because if you're only trying to survive, continue surviving, then you get to the point where your character enduring is more important than the story. And for me, the story is always the most important thing. So that at that moment, as a character, I was always prepared to sacrifice myself for some greater good. But just how that whole final scene worked out, it was like, there is no other choice but for me to sacrifice myself. And oops, also that was going to happen anyway. So
Yeah.
It was a weird. I was prepared for it, and also not prepared for the way that it happened.
Well, I've got to say that was so much fun to run and so much fun to have you in both of those games, JD. And just unabashed plug. There are two types of games I enjoy running. I really enjoy running grand campaigns, like Fall of the Children of Bronze for Jackals or The Darkening of Mirkwood. But PEG plot point campaigns, where it's just here is the location and all of the things going on here. If you have not run a plot point campaign, go check out the Horror at Headstone Hill. It is amazing. They got one for Rifts coming out. They do a lot of these, so go check them out. Buy yourself a Christmas present. So at this point, there's been one person I've been neglecting because I know Gabe will bring the stories. If you did not watch our Space 1889 adventure, which, Jenny, you have to go back and watch.
I'm really excited.
Myth Mangrinder. I had to say Mangrinder with a straight face for 3 straight days.
I'm proud of you.
That's Lady Man Grind.
That's Lady Mangrinder to you, GM. Gabe, give us one of your stories.
So, I just kind of, with this story, this is a mood story. I want to set an atmosphere. I was at the time, the breakfast cook at a monastery. Every morning I would wake up very early and go make breakfast for a monastery full of monks. And in return, they didn't pay me. In return, I got to live for free in a scorpion-infested cottage on the monastery grounds and go in and eat the food, the scraps that the monks had left on the table after their own meals were finished. It was a great time. However, in the scorpion-infested cottage in which I lived, and when I say scorpion-infested cottage, I really mean like...
There were actual scorpions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of the more memorable moments were when I was brushing my teeth and a scorpion just crawled up out of the drain, and I had to shove it back down with my toothbrush.
I'm glad I didn't know any of that until after you moved out.
But there was in this cottage a large marble table. Now, the monks assured me that it was not, in fact, a desecrated altar, that it was just a large marble slab table that they had been given for, like, meetings or something, and they just didn't know where to put it, and so they put it in this little retreat house. But I, who had just started a Dungeons & Dragons sort of weekly game with some people, adamantly insisted to everyone that played with me that it was, in fact, a desecrated marble altar on which we were playing our D&D every week. And so one of my sort of very favorite moments is very early on in playing D&D. It was Halloween, and I decided we were going to go all out and have a great Halloween time. And so everybody got to roll up temporary characters. We took a break from our little main campaign, and we played the Tomb of Horrors. And everybody that was playing was new to the game, had no idea what the Tomb of Horrors involved, and so yes?
Did anyone stick their hand in the demon mouth?
I really can't remember.
Okay.
I mean, there were a lot of different ways.
Oh, there's so many ways to die.
I'm positive that I'm positive someone got wiped out before we even got in the dungeon. Was in one of the false entrances.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But I decided we were going to do this in half measures. And so Jenny was kind enough to bring one of her fog machines.
I forgot about that.
And I then just was in a monastery, so went around and rounded up every candle I could get my hands on. And lit this place with candles and a fog machine. We had a little buffet. Everybody came in costume, and we played through the Tomb of Horrors until everyone had died enough times that they were miserable.
So we should play at some point on stream. We should play the Tomb of the Iron God, which is a 4th edition D&D module designed to be played in exactly 4 hours. You have 4 hours from the time the game starts until the poison gas kills you.
Mm-hmm.
And you are scored based off how far you get into the dungeon. We played this. I ran it in 5th edition.
Okay.
We played
Was
the
it
first
TPK?
Yeah, no, this was just something that we did back when I was living in Ivanhoe, or not Ivanhoe, Ampersand. So, before we go any further, Jenny, would you mind reading what Peg has said?
Oh, according to Peg, thanks for the plug. Get 25% off anything at asterisk, 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 except crowdfunders, with code ICONIC at the end of the year, exclamation point.
Yeah, so you guys...
Pinnacle website.
Yeah, the Pinnacle website. If you guys want to go over there, check out Horror at Headstone Hill. It's a great campaign. I know Ben will probably go spend a ton of money because he has...
The 25% off is not too shabby.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe... hold on, let me get the name right.
I need to fill in my Rifts collection. So
Oh, dude, the Savage Rifts stuff is so good.
it's, yes. It's awesome.
I happen to know that Tinker Hellraiser is also a fan of Deadlands, and they should go check out that code. So, man, we have so many good stories, just so many things to talk about. I know this was not a story that happened last year, but one of my favorite games that I've run ever was the Fading Suns game that JD produced and Becca played in. Like tears for the last 4 episodes. Just a sprawling space epic that if you have, I don't know, like 3 weeks to watch, is all about the Iconic Production YouTube. It was, like, seriously, it ended beautifully, very satisfying. I don't think there were any real loose ends in the campaign. It was a full month of Star, but it was kind of that beautiful melancholy, like watching the last episode of Cowboy Bebop, which if you have watched, you know what I'm talking about. That beautiful melancholy that you're just like, I'm sad and I want to stay sad. I'm gonna go watch Spike die.
Spoiler alert.
But one of my favorite gaming moments that I wanted to share was from the Glorantha game that I watched, or I ran with Becca. And it is, I don't know that I have, so Becca had an emotional roller coaster in that game. There were, like, the first time I ever saw Becca cry, if I may, Becca, was in our RuneQuest game. Her mentor, who was this beloved, insane shaman, was captured by Brew, which, if you know anything about Glorantha, is a fate worse than death. And it wasn't until months later when Becca went on her, Visana went on her quest to become a shaman that she failed her quest. She's like, is there anything I can do? It's like, well, you can break Carthello's fetch. Now, if you know anything about Glorantha, if a shaman dies, the fetch breaks, or if you break the fetch, the shaman dies. And that's the moment where basically everyone at the table realized Carthello was still alive after all of these months, being tortured and forced to give birth to Brew. And so she snapped it, she succeeded. Like, it was just this gut-wrenching emotional moment. But the two funny moments for Becca, and you can tell me,
This is how you're going to frame it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This is a funny story.
There was one moment. This is a funny story. So the first moment where I saw Becca just in shock, not in tears, the group split, and 2 of the PCs were like, "We're gonna go fucking Fight Club in this town." And the guy never lied to him. The thing about this NPC who showed up multiple times, and the best part was every time he showed up, the players that this happened to were on new characters, so they didn't know what this guy had done to their previous characters. He never lied. He very honestly got them to sell themselves into slavery as gladiators. And then he took all of their magic weapons, which they willfully gave him, and sold them. And meanwhile, Becca and Beth are like, surely they're going to figure this out. Surely now is when the car's not going to go off the edge of the cliff.
No.
But the best moment for me, and Becca, you can jump in on any of these, was when our friend Josh, who is on the Grand Campaign. Josh, for 2/3 of the campaign, was desperately trying to woo
I know what you're talking about.
this
That was funny.
initiate of Vinga, this beautiful warrior woman who worshipped the god of thunder in his warrior woman aspect, and she refused to wed anyone who did not bring her a storm ring from the top of Caro Fin, where they graze on clouds. And so Josh is playing this character who is an initiate of Chalana Arroy. He's a complete and total pacifist. He's an amazing healer, but he gets that healing because he never kills anything. So at one point, Josh's character, whose name escapes me, the man of war robs us of our memory. Do you remember what his name was off the top? He would be horrified if I don't remember his name. Anyway, he told this poet he wanted to send love poetry. Sestapos wanted to send back love poetry just so that Vasana didn't think he was dead. And so he was not a poet, but I asked him to make a roll to see how well he described Vasana, and he critically succeeded on it. So he comes back to the Tula like 6 months later, like 2 seasons later, to find that poet had fallen in love with his description of Vasana and had showed up with a storm ram a week early and was also attempting to woo her. Becca laughed so hard. It was possibly one of my finest DM moments.
The look of stunned horror on his face as he realized what had happened. It was just beautiful.
Well, I see Jenny and Gabe have been furiously writing with the. I can see you guys writing down the dry erase.
It was really secret. No one could tell.
Well, now you've got. Do you guys have more stories that you would like to share before we bounce around? I want to get the Bens in here a bit too.
I just wrote down some snippets of things that I remembered. But one of them that really stuck out to me, just as something funny from like my very first month or second month of playing, is we just started playing D&D. I'd never done any role-playing game before. We still didn't really know how it worked. We were playing, I think, first edition. And it was one of the ones that was exclusively hallways, and like a secret hatch would open up into 4 more hallways. And it was just hallway city.
Call that the Moldved Express.
And everyone who was playing was absolutely brand new. And our DM at the time, Gabe, you had left to go back and visit your family.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else had hopped in as DM, I think. Might be getting some stories mixed up. And we brought in a new friend who had never played before. I mean, so we had 4 weeks experience on this guy, so nothing. But we brought in a new friend who had never played before. And at this point, like, we'd had some fights, we'd gotten some hit points, and all had been fun, and we'd all been able to heal each other, and everything had been just like fun and dandy, and it was hallway city. And then the first thing, our friend comes in, he's like taking over someone else's character because they were also out of town or something. And so he's borrowing a character. The first thing we do is encounter some sort of ghost something. Again, it's been a while. And they don't do damage, they take away levels. And the first hit that any one of us got that day was this new friend who'd never played with us before and was borrowing someone else's character, got hit by this person or this ghost who took away a level, and we were level 1 characters, and they died. And again, at this point, all of us had like 1 or 2 hit points at a time. None of us, we all thought he was joking. We were all so confused. And our friend, his name was Matt, who was joining us for that first time, was mortified that his first thing that he did, his first game playing while borrowing someone else's character, was get them killed. And it was so funny.
Yeah.
So I've had the pleasure of gaming with JD for quite a while. we started gaming when Cam was back at his first store. But I would say that the first campaign you ever played with me in was the 5th edition playtest we ran at the new store, where you played Boaz. Do you have any fun memories from Boaz? I mean, we've played a lot together, Jake, and hopefully even more in the future. We're going to make an announcement of one of our new shows next year tonight.
I did love Boaz. Boaz, I like to play that character. If you are in our Discord game, I also have a Boaz, who is my ram, and he was named after a ram that I had in real life. So I love using that name, especially for sheep-like characters. And I really, really loved the Oxen characters, groups. But my favorite memory of him as a character was we were standing against a force we could not stand against, like too large of a force. And as my character, I'm like, well, I'm still not going to stand down. So I spit in the guy's face, and Jam is like, well, he's like 20 feet away or something. And I'm like, I spit. And he goes, okay, roll it. And I critically succeeded. And so I hocked the loogie across the battlefield right to the dude's mouth.
That was the moment that I would like never roll for something that cannot happen. But I could have. The dice tell a story.
Yeah.
JD also got to play in my exceptional it was right circumstance, right players, right game. We played Shadows of Esther. And much like the Fading Suns horror episode that I accidentally ran, Becca, we had this episode with one of the players going through a nightmare. And my teeth were falling out, and like I had the windows all open, so it was fall in Colorado, so it was maybe like 50 degrees in my basement with the windows open, and we played by oil light, and then this nightmare sequence happened. It was deliciously chilling.
Amazing.
All right, who's got a story?
I've got one.
Go for it, Gabe.
Ben, go for it.
Oh, well, I was just going to say the best thing that happened to me this year is getting to meet JD and JM and Ben and many others, Tim and Daryl at Gen Con this year, which was amazing because we have played together for years now, more than a year at least. And the time goes by so fast. It seems like it's been no time at all. So that's the only time I've ever met you in person, and it's amazing. I can't wait to meet Jenny and Gabe and everybody else, and you, Becca. But we've been playing the game for a while now, and sometimes I think like because it's weekly, it's hard to remember like what are the best things that we did, because I just remember like, oh, the best thing I did this week was this. Or like this is the current plot scenario we're in. Like, we're making a movie, we're on the set, and I kind of forget the grand scheme of everything that we've done. So when I think back to like what is the best thing that has happened, first of all, it really begins with Ben Fian. Big shout out to Mr. Kowalski. We're on the B team together. And originally the B team was supposed to be a one shot, and I think especially after our Space 1899 scenario, it's been pointed out to me that perhaps Gabe and Ben are not built to play one shots. Right, our willingness to go down the wrong turn is maybe higher than the average person who's trying to just figure out the puzzle. I'm trying to figure out this puzzle. A puzzle was clearly laid out, and we're like, oh, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make a paper airplane with the lid. But then we won't be able to see what the puzzle's supposed to be. That's the lid. Yeah, really need an airplane. So
I think Variety Man Grinder tried to find out the solution to the puzzle. Not the puzzle of the game, just the one she imagined there was.
I was trying to solve how to make the ship work, and it caused a
Mhm.
3-day blackout in London. But
Mhm.
I'm not sad about that. I revel in it. But so the B team was supposed to be a one shot, and I made a character that I was perfectly willing to have die, and I was just gonna play him to his death, like he's just gonna die. But then we didn't, and it kept coming back, and Ben Fian was in the group. He's our big gun, but he had to miss a couple games. And so he became our like damsel in distress over and over
The
because we
official
were always
iconic term
He did-
is
he just
doozle.
couldn't be there. So our dudesel in distress, and I a bit of a play around a bit on the Photoshop, and I made a poster where he was wearing the Leia outfit, the very recognizable princess from the stars, legally nondescript outfit, and he was totally good. Like, yep. I didn't think it was going to be an in-game thing. It was just a joke for the poster. But then, like, everyone hopped on board and was like, "Yeah, that's real. That's what we're doing." And so then, when we got to play on this game, this team together, I just really, really wanted to be a cyborg. Like, I just wanted to be a cyber knight. I wasn't thinking at all about like where it was going to go. And on our very, very first episode, we just killed stuff and broke Notre Dame, which I think is why the fire broke out. In canon. But the very first episode of the FET 5, we went into a bar, and I know he was just being funny, but he ran into a bathroom to investigate the bathroom immediately because we're not very bright. And so I chased him into the bathroom, and I think first we interrogated the bathroom attendant who told us that we were in the wrong place. So then we went into the kitchen, and we threatened the chef who quit. And so in Tharcold terms, he became the chef. Because if you take down the big dog,
Does it, Ben?
you become the big dog. So it's like, well, now you're the chef, which we made the joke that he was the head chef. And then it turned out that the bad guy, we Scooby-Dooed our way into the office of the bad guy, not thinking that was actually going to happen. And it turns out the bad guy is just a head. So literally, he is a chef for a head, the head chef.
Yep. It was.
I can't.
It was
serendipity. No, and then look, I'm not gonna. There's not a lot of people, especially PCs, that I'll play a romance card on any NPC, but playing a romance card on a PC might be questionable. But I knew that it was going to be okay because of the bromance that exists between Kowalski and Brother Block.
Yeah,
So
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm thankful to be half of the Bens.
agreed. No, like when Brother Block went dark, like it threw me for a loop because I was like, okay, I know how Kowalski would respond to this, but I don't think I am personally capable of actually expressing like the heartbreak that Kowalski is experiencing as like the good guy in this relationship is going dark. Like, yeah, I was like, I don't know how to say that. I don't know how to actually communicate that like as an actor or as a player. But yeah, that was great. And yeah.
Oh, also really quick, my son has forced me to watch on YouTube a thing called Spooky Month, which is really popular with kids. I don't know if you've seen it, but the whole thing is that a guy gets stuck, his soul, his consciousness gets stuck inside a doll. And the whole time I was like, oh, this is Chad. It's Chad.
Poor Chad.
Man, oh my gosh, I forgot about the initial,
Kaylee's one shot.
the one shots that we did that were all good. Like, they were great. What a great way to introduce everybody. I'm going to jump over to Becca here for a second, but I'm going to share one of my favorites from there's so many good ones. I've been blessed with so many great stories. Two that come to mind. I was running an Exalted game, and Bob Crumb. When you eventually watch this, you should, if you follow Iconic, you know how much we love Bob Crumb. And so we're playing this
art.
Yeah, he did the art. He did the art for this stream. He did the art for our stream last week. So there we are, playing Exalted 2nd Edition, which is I love it, but it is a cluster of a game. Most of my favorite game stories come from games that are just clusters of games, and somehow they work. And so Bob had this background that said, hey, I get free magic points every adventure because I have a cult that worships me. I'm going to take that thing all the way up to max level. So like for every adventure, it's like, so what are you telling your cult of you worshiping assassins to do? He's like, nothing, just take whatever contracts you can get. And I was like, after about like 6 months of this, it's like, something's going to fight them in the butt. And so they just had their biggest victory in the campaign. They defended a city. It was very Helm's Deepy. They summoned Ents to defend the city. It was awesome. And I left that session going, man, they are so happy. That was such a great session. I need to break them at the start of the Can't have PCs riding too high at the midpoint of a campaign. And so they had this mentor that they loved, that Mark's daughter, Mark Pileggi's daughter, Mark's daughter, had forged in ages past, left to like guide her soul every time it incarnated. They loved this guy, Pearl, this automaton. So after a night of revelry, which is what we started the next session as, her character comes around the corner to see this automaton, Pearl, get its head chopped off, die brutally in the street. And as she's screaming for help, assassin scales the walls and drops this cloth down. Sure enough, the big bad evil guy of the campaign hired Bob's death cult to kill their mentor. It was the first time, like I feel like I had run good games, like fun games, exciting games, but it was the first time I remember at the table watching emotions rip through people. Like, one of the players is yelling at Bob. Bob is sitting there shell-shocked. Mark's daughter is just crying because this beloved NPC that was very tied to her had just died. I remember going there going, oh, there's probably not the... I think all good GMs have a tiny bit of sociopath in them going, oh.
So you're like the dean from Community. This did awaken something in me.
You've played in a lot of my games.
Yeah.
I think, oh, I hope this doesn't awaken something. So Becca had a story that she wanted to share from one of the Jackals playtests. If that's the story you want to share, if not, you can tell how I won Dungeons and Dragons, and it was advanced.
Well, I mean, the Jackals playtest was something else in several different ways. Okay, JD walked away. So it was actually with JD and other friends, and there's multiple parts to this. But one was definitely the fact that this was like the first time I had ever played with JD.
JD has completely disappeared at this point.
JD has left, so I can tell the story and like gotta tell it quickly because it's JM introduced to us a stone spear that
It's in
had
the core
runes.
rulebook because I loved it so much.
You did, yeah. That has runes like up and down the shaft, and JD's character was one of the knowledge seekers, the Hashir of the time, and so JD goes, well, I want to get a good rubbing on the shaft, and myself
To
and
my
another friend,
credit,
we
I made no face.
no face. Like my friend and I like look at each other and we're like, okay, interesting. And then we go around and Mr. Furious, this whole like moment was just an adventure in phrasing as my friend and I are like, we don't know this person well enough to giggle. So we're not going to. As the shaft gets rubbed and categorized and the butt gets explored and like just
And
it
many
was
have picked up their phones, turned away from what is going on. And to JD's
Because-
credit, it was all in character and perfectly innocent.
it was. And now I know I can absolutely tease JD with that. And you know, I can ask questions about why her character was so interested in this shaft. But it was delightful in the moment. And then like a little bit later, our group is walking down this hallway and we come across a big purple gemstone that is clearly like evil. And this was when our friend Maddie broke Jackals for a brief moment
It's true.
before JM was like, I gotta fix this. And she did the right touch of law, which gives damage back to anything that is corrupted. It gives that much damage back. So if it's corrupted 3, it gets 3 damage. Well, JM had written infinity next to this stone for its corruption level. And so Maddie cast infinity damage onto the stone. It
Yeah,
exploded,
I side by the rules.
scarred her character, and JM, I remember that because JM kind of sits there and he looks at it and he pulls out his pen and he goes, I have to fix that. And Maddie goes, I got you. And proceeds to just break the games.
Speaking of Jackals, shameless self-plug. The 3rd book has just arrived in the US, and if you order it, it will be available on December 27th. This is probably the book I'm most proud of,
It is a lovely book.
even though Fall of the Children of Bronze is like just a close second. But does anyone have other stories to share?
Yeah, I got one more.
Go for it, Gabe.
So, I don't know. It is.
Oh, I want to.
All right. It's difficult to know quite exactly how to punish your players for being murder hobos. If they weren't like trying to be murder hobos,
Jenny's look.
if all the genocide was accidental, like you can't really just like,
It's not a long-term game.
you know, like just lay the smack down on it. But I figured out at the end of our campaign how to wrap things up and just like really hold the mirror up to what they had done over the course of this 3-year campaign, which was one of the most like one of my best memories is playing this campaign. And there throughout it there was this sometime villain, sometime comic relief named Carbuncle, who was an armadillo who had a magic gem that could generate small pocket universes that were always just kind of awful.
That is amazingly gonzo.
Yeah.
I tip my hat to you.
And so each time, so whenever we needed like a nice break, like a nice goofy episode, like a holodeck episode,
Yeah.
they would get trapped in one of Carbuncle's alternate dimensions, and it would always be something like, "Welcome to Carbuncle's mansion," or "A night at the opera with Carbuncle." And you'd have to like figure out where the door out of his like secret like pocket universe was. It was like, you know, welcome, let's play to you know, go to the ball game with Carbuncle. Where is the hidden door? So we played through this grand campaign, 3 years. You know, wonderful campaign. The big bad is dead. They've pretty much completed everything, and we had
Mystic
a little,
Science Carbuncle Theater 3000.
Yeah.
Mr. Furious wants a ticket to this show.
absolutely. And I was like, okay, your last session to round out this is just a little coda, and all the players stumble into another one of Carbuncle's pocket universes, and this one is Carbuncle High. They are at Carbuncle High School, and every other person at the high school is an NPC they've encountered sometime in the campaign. And the way to get out of Carbuncle's high school is you had to become homecoming king or queen. And to do that, you had to have a homecoming date. And the main meat of this campaign, of this whole adventure, was the players having to go to every single NPC they've ever met in the course of the campaign and ask if they would be their homecoming date. And it was just like this wonderful,
That is amazing.
wonderful feeling as they all just walked around to people that they had, stomped on, whose culture they had wiped out, whose gods they had desecrated, and just trying to find anybody, any NPC who didn't hate them to go to the homecoming dance with them so they could get out of Carbuncle High School. And that was the most beautiful kind of wrap up to this great, great campaign.
Follow-up comment on that on that adventure. Earlier in the campaign, we had encountered one of the 20 brothels that had been designed for this campaign. And at one of the brothels, there was another half-orc working as a chef. And me, my half-orc character, who just wanted to be loved, fell in love with this half-orc chef. And then tried to save him as we burned down his entire livelihood and his home and killed all his friends. And just wanted him to love me. And it didn't work out. So then we go to Carbuncle High. And I'm like, here's my chance. I tried so hard to get that half-orc chef to date my half-orc player. And I got turned down, and it was really sad. And I still have feelings about it. I ended up going to Carbuncle High homecoming with Snotty Flynn.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, Gabe, it reminds me, so when I ran Rifts, I had Al Minster. Not Elminster, Al Minster, who showed up with the same thing. And in my mage game, who you may get to meet someday, the lawyer, Justin Case. Yeah, attorney at law.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you need that pressure release valve.
Yeah.
To kind of.
Carbuncle was this great way to just have something. All your characters, your great D&D characters that are epic, 10th level, whatever.
Yeah.
Now they need to get a date to homecoming.
Yeah, how do you do that?
We got to relive the awkwardness of having to get dates to homecoming.
Right.
Well done, Gabe. Well done. I had two fun ones, and then I'm going to be quiet for a minute and just I desperately want to hear Becca's side of the story that I always share. But Becca, I decided to run a Call of Cthulhu game for my friends who had never played Call of Cthulhu. And Becca's like, can I invite this relative of mine? He has never played a role-playing game before. So I ran the Introduction to Masks of Nyarlathotep, the Peru adventure. So this guy is playing Bruce. And they get to the hotel in Peru. Again, first game ever is Call of Cthulhu, is the Peru Introduction to Masks of Nyarlathotep. And he's like, those two guys seem shady.
Hang
I
on.
go follow them.
I feel like you also need to just kind of put in, his name was Bruce, and he was an Australian hobo.
That's right, an Australian hobo. Bruce. And so Bruce goes in, kicks in the door to their hotel room and finds that they're all doing heroin. And they were like, because it's the 1920s in South America, and it's in the adventure. I'm like, and so he's like, they basically do the whole, well, if you're cool. So if you play this adventure, spoiler alert, if you're going to play Master Nyarlathotep, do not listen to him. These are the fat-sucking vampires. So he does heroin with them. So the only chance you have of avoiding becoming a fat-sucking vampire is because of the pain when they bite into your stomach. You get a save to come to your senses and run away. Unless I rolled, you are high on heroin. And so I have to take this brand new special snowflake who has never played, and I was like, you are now the bad guy of this game. Do not reveal it to anyone. And so for the next hour, he's sitting there. There's like sweat coming. He's sort of like shiftily looking at everybody, laughing inappropriately. And I'm like, oh my God, he's going to give it away. And no one picked up on it until he ripped into people. They thought he was just nervous because it was his first gaming experience.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And he learned a valuable lesson, which I learned from McGruff the Crime Dog during my DARE years. Don't do heroin with strange people in hotel rooms. I don't know if that's a caveat or a whole...
I don't think you don't need all of that.
That's fair. Now, we were playing a Numenera game, and Ben, this was the most uncomfortable I've seen Ben in a game. The most... Do you remember the Devil Carnival?
Yes, I do. I do remember the Devil Carnival.
Do you want to share the story?
Sure. So because somehow this always happens to me, in every game I ever play, I always end up as the sidekick or with a sidekick.
Or with a sidekick.
Or with a sidekick.
Sure.
So our good friend Nick was playing with us. His character, who was like Space Casanova.
Yeah, he had like tens of thousands of children.
At one point, he was selected by the queen of some insectoid race to become the father of all of her spawn. So there were literally thousands of little Nick's characters running around.
With extra legs and
Right.
segmented
And he
eyes.
also, there was another time
Game, we should write our own game, Mr. Furious said, called Brothels and Breakfast.
I wouldn't do that.
he also had a number of small vole children from a time when we became voles.
Yeah,
from time.
Nick's character had a defining trait. It was the fact that his skin was like a hard candy shell, like
Right.
Pepto-Bismol. And if there was an inhuman race to father children with.
But he loved his children. He carried that
He
little
did.
vole around from everywhere.
He was not an absentee father.
And so we've been transported to Tanar, as Numenera being the 9 billion years in the future. There's all these other dimensions out there. We get transported to JM's fantasy homeworld of Tanar. And we encounter this carnival run by devils, which of course are lawful evil. So they are very good at carnival games. They don't cheat. You just are going to sell your soul if you lose. And so there's a tent where they're promising fabulous prizes. The tent, of course, is the Rods and Rings game, which you should probably take it from here,
So
man.
at this point, I just came up with the first carnival game I thought of, which was throwing. We'll get to that. And I called it Rods and Rings. And they were like, immediately, Nick and Ben went to the darkest timeline. Like, what could Rods and Rings mean? And I pick up on this because 90% of a GM is reading your player.
Mhm.
So I described like cries of joy, screams of terror coming from inside the tent. And like,
Leather slapping sound.
leather slapping sound. And I watch, even though they're virtual, somehow Nick and Ben's, they're like getting close to each other, like on the virtual screen. And they're like, well, what is this? I'm like, well, it's very easy. Just take your rod and you try and get it through someone else's ring. The game was throwing weighted batons through rings that were suspended from ribbons, but of course it's a devil, so I'm saying it in the most evil way I possibly can. And Nick and Ben are the color of Ben's sweater. They don't back down. Like, they continue to be like, well, can we win a lot of money? Yeah, and then Ben bets Nick's soul because he's not going to bet his soul, and the devil's immediately like, done. And they're like, well, now we have to go.
It was amazing. Nick is currently in seminary.
That's right. Jenny, you look like you're made of questions.
Oh, first, just a comment. If I've learned anything about carnival games, period, I wouldn't bet $5, much less a soul. that was just like my first thought.
Right.
Scales of Justice was a unique character in that his previous universe he came from was destroyed by Absolutists, completely destroyed his universe. It was a superhero universe, and he was the sole remaining survivor,
One of two.
one of two survivors.
Gentleman Jack.
Gentleman Jack, who was his arch nemesis, where he was, and it was a supervillain, and they were the only two survivors. And essentially, I'm trying to think, it'd be like if Solomon Grundy was the only survivor of the DC universe.
Okay.
That was essentially the
Or
character.
the tick.
The tick, yeah.
The
The
tick
tick
is
is probably a
the
better
survivor.
example.
Well, before we go into Becca's story, Gabe is going to read one from John Doom. John Doom is a new fan and friend of Iconic who played in our Savage Rifts game. He was our Cyber Knight. Completely legally distinct version of Cyber Knight from Brother Block. He shared a story that I'm going to let Gabe read right now.
All right. This one's for you, John Doom. Because I hadn't told the story, and because I'm taking John at face value, I shall regale you with the story of the Wagon Mountain incident. Being Halloween and a con game, I was trying to pay for time correctly, so I started with a combat, which took the players a little bit. Because no one was rolling fantastically, they eventually defeated the Ghost Braves and were on their way to figure out what was causing the town to be bathed in a strange purple glow that seemed to be blocking all EM signals. At this point, I figured I'd run a couple quick encounters to move along the story. When I say quick, they mean quick. The fast part of Savage Worlds is fast. 3 encounters later, of a relatively quick variety, one being a dangerous quick encounter, which is always fun to add in, they get to the house of the bad guy. The bad guy blasts one character with a huge scorching burst, and it crit fails. What fun! The setting recommends using the dynamic backlash table, and the big bad rolls the inability to use magic anymore. A few more rounds pass, and the big bad is anticlimactically defeated, and everything goes back to normal. Everyone enjoyed themselves. The players had a great time. The author of the setting said he had fun too.
Oh, dang.
I feel like it ran differently than he intended in the writing, but the fun is the part that matters. This has been the Wagon Mound incident. One-shot story.
I will be honest, I was expecting that to go wildly different, even though I have read it multiple times. Because I feel like you need to read the Dunwich Horror, and we need to provide that to our patrons. Because I was like, oh my god, this is going to end in blood and tears and yogs.
Yeah, you want to start a new iconic show where I just read a H.P. Lovecraft story every year?
Hell yes.
Yes, and we should start with Nemesis. Mike, you
Done. I read the complete.
but you heard the Billy Joel version.
Yes,
of
yes,
Nemesis.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, yeah, no, we need to do this.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, Mr. Furious is in, so, like, we're there.
Mm-hmm.
Becca, would you like to share the Strahd story? And then I feel like Jenny still has notes in front of her, so we're going to jump over to her next.
See, this is what happens when you're a
So
dork.
yeah, the story of how JM won Dungeons and Dragons.
And it was advanced.
And it was advanced.
It was a 5th edition. Needless to say. So. Oh, I mean, how do I even start this story? So as I said earlier, I essentially lied to all my friends to get them to play Dungeons and Dragons with me because I had nobody to play with for the longest time, and I was just pretending like I knew how to dungeon master.
Okay, real quick. You keep telling us you lied to them. How did you con them into this? Like, what did you tell them you were doing?
I'm shopping.
I
Yeah, no, I'm
told
just-
them.
You guys want to come over for booze and heroin?
No, it wasn't
Hey,
Aaron. There was
just
just
fun.
promised. It was.
Brothels and
Hey guys,
breakfasts.
I found this new game that looks like a lot of fun. And I really think it would help me and my creativity, my writing skills, if I could like use you guys to be the characters of a story. This would help me to improve my own writing abilities.
So you preyed upon their better angels to assist you in your creative endeavors.
absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely. It's like, well, we'll
What kind of monster
play
preys on
a
angels?
fantasy game. You guys can, fight dragons. You can explore dungeons. We'll figure it out as we go. I've never done it either. So yeah.
Lies.
I never told them we're
They
playing
do.
Dungeons and Dragons. I just asked them to help me.
Slightly less cooked. It's a little
Please.
chewier in the mouth.
Yeah. So yeah, I tricked them, like straight up.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. I feel bad because now they enjoy playing in games. So
Why do you feel bad?
I feel bad that I didn't ever have to lie to them, but I felt like I did to get them to even think about it. But so I don't really know what I'm doing. My friends don't really know what they're doing. We're kind of all just bumbling around. I meet JM. I invite him to come join. He feels lied and betrayed too because he doesn't get to play the character he wants to play. And so they finally get to Strahd's Castle, Ravenloft, and they've been going through it, building up momentum to fight the big bad guy. And JM
May I interrupt real quick?
rolls. Say
Who is
please.
playing an 80-year-old man who is a warlock who worships Cthulhu because Becca said, don't bring your favorite character. They'll kill him immediately. No, they fell in love with this crazy a-hole, and I had to play him for like 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. They killed everybody else who showed up, but JM showed up and they're like, oh, you can be old and crazy. It's fine. And so they're fighting the vampire. I keep knocking the fighter down. And JM casts, what was it, Charm Person?
Crown of Madness first, and then Charm Person.
Crown of Madness, Charm Person. Strahd fails his saving throws. I had not reread about that whole legendary resistances. So I didn't. And so, so Jam charms Strahd, gets him to take off his clothes.
Which in my defense, I thought were magical, and they were not.
Sure.
Wearing like gothic fire clothes that don't fit and are not magical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And strips has Strahd stripped down, hands over his clothes, and JM tells Strahd to go stand in the corner and do butt flexes.
That was for the ladies. I was the only guy in this group. Strahd,
and
Chris
that was
was funny. I would just like to point out our move.
That was a power move.
Charisma characters take the cake.
Yeah. Later, when I was like, I feel like Strahd should have been more powerful. Oh, look, he's got legendary
Yeah.
resistances.
Did I tell her that? Oh yeah, he probably could have used legendary resistance. Yeah, 100%. Like I was transparent after the fact.
After the fact. Long after the fact.
Long after the fact.
Yeah, which allowed then our fighter to finally stand up on her turn and have enough to use her one wish that she had gotten, I mean, like 2 years before. They had gotten boons for saving somebody, and I'd given the fighter a wish spell, essentially. And she wishes that vampires had never existed and fundamentally changed
Of course.
the world.
Uh-huh.
Strips.
Yeah.
Witch dip.
Yeah, that's right. No more mutants. All right, so before we get to Jenny, so just a couple things. We will be doing Bureau G next week, which is going to be a ton of fun. Hopefully you guys can tune in for that. If you guys want to come and join and be part of the chat, I would be delighted. Next year, we're going to be coming back either the second or the third Tuesday in January, and we're going to be coming back with one of the largest groups we've ever run, because the B team and the FET 5 will be in the same game at the same time.
There'll be at least 6 people.
Well, hold on. There'll be the 5 of you.
Mhm.
Ben and Ben will all be playing 2 characters, so that's still
Still
only 5
5.
of you.
Yeah.
Maddie, 6.
Okay.
And Brian, 7. Yeah.
In your face.
You were off by a whole 1. Also, just to point out,
And Phantom,
I
right?
said at least.
that's right, you did. I'll allow it.
And Kirk.
Oh, and Kirk, haha, 8. Also, if you haven't checked it out, Space 1889 is still available on Kickstarter for the next 30 hours and 36 hours, which is kind of insane to me. We just crossed $35,000. We've unlocked another stretch goal. Richard Rowland of the Grand Campaign, and who will be writing the next, the big game for Strange Owl, is going to be doing an adventure. And we have possibly other adventures to be written. I don't know which way I'm supposed to point, but there might be other adventures in Space 1889 to be written by familiar iconic faces if the Kickstarter continues to go well. So, Jenny, would you please share another story for us?
Oh, okay. So we've talked before about some of the emotional experiences that we've had in gaming. Not necessarily our favorite bits, but some of the more gut-wrenching parts. And Gabe has also mentioned the ones where he turned the mirror and we got to see what monsters we were. A couple that come to mind were one campaign, I don't even remember what campaign this was, but we'd spent like a month on this island, a month of sessions, so 4 sessions, but a month on this island trying to protect this kingdom and killing every goblin we saw because of this goblin, all these invading goblins who were coming in. And we had gone on all these raiding parties to try and get rid of the goblins who kept attacking this town. And then finally, after like 4 sessions, we talked to someone and learned that they were just good people who were trying to protect the town also, and that the town just like never listened to them, and we had killed 80% of them, and then they were still really cool about it afterward. Like, we'd taken all of their weapons, we would attack and then leave, and then they would just try and scramble afterwards. They really only defended themselves. They were like good people. We became friends, so that was nice. But it was one of those moments like, oh right, we're the monsters. But the one that sticks out to me and that I still think about at least once a week is
Nicely done, Gabe.
on our first campaign. We've mentioned like this 3-year campaign. At one point, we got into this cavern that was like, it was like a lake, and there's some higher spots, and we noticed a hydra next, and the hydra had gone off to, I don't know, be its best hydra self, I don't know, but it left all of its hydra eggs there, and we were so worried about these hydras hatching and then growing up and then attacking us that we destroyed the eggs. And then we heard the hydra coming back, so we decided to hide in the closet that the hydra probably couldn't fit through. We decided to hide in the closet because we were not ready to fight this full-grown hydra. And then rather than try and come out after us, this hydra came back and saw those eggs destroyed. And for the next 24 hours of in-game time, we sat in the closet listening to the hydra cry.
They thought it was the big bad, like of the session, and it just cried at them.
It was so sad, and I think about it all the time. I think about that at least once a week. So, yeah. So just those 2 moments that remind me, hey, we're monsters.
Yeah.
Last couple. I want Ben to jump, Brother Block, if he's got another one to share. But a couple more that have stood out to me. One sad, one funny, and one horrifying. The sad one was in our Estrid game. We were playing with John, JD, and her husband John, and John was playing this alchemist. And he had rolled up through the trauma he had suffered during the game that his character had OCD. So they had spent the night in this snow cave because this blizzard had rolled through. And gotta love Derek. Derek steps out of the cave, the snow cave that they had built when this blizzard passed. And he's like, yes, we live. He's like, I scream it at the top of my lungs. So I rolled for avalanche. So the snow avalanche happens, and it's this very stressful scene. And I go to John, I'm like, what are you doing? So JD's trying to get her character out. Everyone's trying to flee for their lives. And John's like, so this is a stressful scene? I'm like, yep. He's like, I sit down and I take out all of my alchemy vials and I start organizing them by color and alphabetically until they calm down. He was buried alive Right? I'm just like,
Yeah.
it was amazing. I don't know that he grasped how amazing that moment was. Because John's brilliant. Like, John is like a wonderful person and a brilliant guy. But sometimes, like, the little minutia, he does something, you're like, that was amazing. He's like, oh. Another one was a Call of Cthulhu thing that I think you will be proud of. We were playing Horror on the Orient Express, and Abby, who played in the early sessions of our Fading Suns game, she did not get that she was in a Call of Cthulhu game right up until each of her characters died.
Multiple, apparently.
And so they're in Paris, and like the big cult if you watch Horror on the Orient Express, run by the magnificent Becca, the cult that you're after, like, they take skin from people and then form disguises to take their identities. So Abby ends up like separating from the group in Paris and won't tell anybody that she got bit by a vampire. So she goes to a hospital. The hospital she picks has happened to be run by like a doctor who is one of these skin changer cults, who I had her make a constitution roll and she failed. So there's a lot of drug use in my Call of Cthulhu games. She wakes up she's very confused because she sees her character like return to the rest of the group and is like, hey, I think somebody's after the piece that we have. We gotta find it. We gotta hide it. And so everybody's like, oh my God, what's going on? All right, like let's go open the safe where we've hidden it. So she finally wakes up to the pounding at the door as the police are trying to break into the exam room. She has a needle in her arm and a rubber hose around her and a large piece of her skin off her back missing. And that's when the group realized that the Abby's character they were engaging with was one of the skin changers. And Abby's character went to jail for like beating up a doctor. Did not happen. The doctor beat himself up, a la Liar Liar. And stealing a bunch of drugs and then shooting up in an exam room. It's good times. But the best story, and I will end, this will be my last story. We're playing 7th again with John and JD. And in 7th 2nd edition, you can take your action to set up a asset for the rest of the team that anyone else can use to get bonus dice. And so they're breaking out of this pirate ship, and this other ship has like collided with their ship. Do you want to say it, JD, or do you want me to finish telling it? Okay. And so John's like, cool, I blow a hole in the side of the ship, and that way we can all swing from the sinking ship to the main ship. And again, this is with my Estering group, so it's John and JD and our friends Derek and Darlene. And I'm like, he's like, and I swing across. I'm like, all right, do you say something cool? And he turns back. He's like looking at his character sheet, and he turns back and he looks at me. And he's like, probably. So that was the catchphrase. Like Derek swinging over, screaming, probably. Probably became the catchphrase of that game. And it was beautiful, John. Like,
Oh, we still use it
you're good because it was
in everyday life.
solid gold. Solid gold. Brother Block, do you have any more to share? And then anyone else who wants to add something, please go ahead and jump on it.
I do. I have one more story that is also iconic related. So my game playing, my technological axiom has always been steampunk plus. So if you're asking me to play a game that has less than that, I'm probably classically Ben is not interested, because even in Torg, it's like, oh, I'm going to be the really strong caveman. Okay, I'm going to be the guy with the gun. So, I don't know, like, oh, do you have a dragon? Because I requisitioned a law rocket. So, there's that. I haven't played a whole lot of other things, but because I was in the Discord and because I'm a member of the iconic community, I was given the opportunity to play with Evan. Evan was GMing. Evan co-hosts the Glorantha podcast with JM. and so Evan's going to run a Glorantha game, and I want to play, but honestly, I don't know anything, and I don't know anything about anything. Even if they're like, well, it's a little bit like this, I'm like, the references that you are making also make no sense. This is like,
Which is fair with
fantasy
Glorantha, to be honest.
Fantasy is my third language. You know what I'm saying? So, so we play. He gives me all of this information, and I do a deep dive. I study all the Glorantha stuff I can study, and we're going to be people who worship the red moon. And it's going to be amazing. And then he says, like, what kind of character do you want to be? And he gives me a couple choices. And the choice that sticks out to me is a penitent, which is basically I don't like to use the S word, but a thrall, you know, to the other heroes. I was a former riverboat con man who was released in a prison break when the Kingdom of War overran the prison. And now I hang out with these dudes, and I'm really there to get beat down. Like, the rules are, the more punishment your character takes, the better chances the other characters have to succeed at stuff. So, first of all, I based my character off Baldric from Blackadder. So I'm doing like, I have a brilliant and cunning plan. I'm sorry that I've messed up everything. And I carry nettles in my socks, so I'm always uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, I turn the nettles into a tea as a drink, and it hurts. So we're playing, and we have to go save this.
Amazing.
We have to go save a ship that's crashed, and when we get to like where we're going, we're suddenly surrounded by a tribe of wolf people who live with wolves and have wolves, and they howl at the moon and whatever. We're surrounded, and maybe we're gonna fight, maybe we're not gonna fight, and I can't fight. Really, I just get hurt. So I say to them, I'm sorry that we have trodden upon your land. However, do you not also worship the moon? For we worship a red moon and its great goddess empress, and we sing to it. Are we not both brothers who are howling at the same moon with only different howls? And then Evan makes me roll, of course, because he's not going to let me just charm my way through it. But the roll came out awesome. And so now the wolf people are on our side, and at the beginning of the game, the only thing penitents are allowed to ride are like poor mules. So they're on these mighty Gloranthan, like legendary Krull Clydesdale steeds, and I'm on a Sancho Panza mule tilting at windmills. But at the very end, I am gifted by my friends, the wolf people, the smallest runt of their litter, on whom I now bravely ride, and I've named him Runt.
Hey, speaking of plug for Evan, next year, Evan's big 13th Age Glorantha love letter to the Lunar Empire, Red Moon and Warring Kingdoms, will be coming out for the Escalation magazine, and it will be completely free. We're going to have him on to talk about it, and for Ben to know, he's going to run another, the next adventure, and you will definitely be in on that.
Awesome.
So, before final announcements, any other stories you guys... This has been, like, a ton of fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have. This has been just a delightful way to just spend an evening.
All the stories that are coming to mind are deaths, like character deaths. It's like one of my earliest RPG memories is as a 19-year-old crying as my first character I ever made died.
Yeah.
But it was a play by post game, so
have a request.
I'm sitting in what we got.
That's not about death. Something good that's not about death.
Okay.
JM.
Yeah.
JM, would you quickly regale us with the tale of how Tyrannic romanced Gregory, and how the two other Storm Knights stayed outside and beat up a
I will
a
end
sled
with that. I
because
will
they
end
were
with that.
sure. They were sure that it was nefarious. That
Yeah.
the sled itself was nefarious. Meanwhile, their friend romanced the big bad, and
Yeah.
JM didn't see it coming.
I did not speak of it. I will come back to that. So you were talking about death.
Oh, just character deaths. Like when I was like 19, I thought I post games, so I'm like crying by myself in front of my computer as a 19-year-old. Was my first
Yeah.
character. Yes.
Nice.
So I've been in it's 15 plus year campaign, superhero campaign. It spawned other different things, but that was one of them. And there was another one where, so I was playing this teenage character, like this Spider-Man homage character, but he was like Spider-Man meets Mr. Fantastic, so he's super flexible, and basically we do this like Goonies homage where where he's heard about this treasure in Chinatown in our version of Chicago, and we think we found the entrance, and unfortunately, due to the description provided by the game master and the rest of us failing to read it properly, we get
Ooh, that's never good.
we get like 4 people deep before I realize there's like this tunnel doesn't go anywhere and it drops straight down, and like we lose like 6 characters in a single roll because they're like
Ooh.
pancaking one on top of
Yeah.
the other, and it was bad. It was a bad time.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So character deaths, I have those.
Man, you have some great ones like Kames.
Kames, there was oh yeah, and then the Ursula Water with the Blood of the Wicked.
which was definitely a Pratchettian.
We blew up the southern half of the continent.
Yeah.
And she died.
Becca, you've never played in any games that had the Black Lantern, but the Black Lantern was one of my. It only came up in the Absolutist War games, and I have never seen characters. I have never seen players legitimately fret as much as they did with the Black Lantern. The Black Lantern was this, and it showed up in a multitude of games. You would go on the Black Lantern but once in your life. The Lady of the Black Lantern would greet you. And there was much more pomp and circumstance.
Mhm.
It was like a tea house, right?
It was like a tea house.
Yeah.
You could ask for your heart's desire. And then she would tell you what it would cost you. And you had one opportunity to say yes or no. And you made your choice, and the door closed behind you. And you would never see the Black Lantern again.
Yeah.
Like, people agonized for
Yeah.
hours on whether to take this, and we would come up like it was mostly me, but in the last time we ran the Absolutist War, we finished it off. Richard was actually his character had become the Lady of the Black Lantern, and so I allowed him to sit in, and we discussed the costs. But there was like one character, one player. I was like, cool. If you want to find your god's sword, I will give you an envelope. And when the beggar tells you to open it, you have to do what it says. And he was like, okay. And so I wrote, you have to ensure that the group loses this fight. And I sealed this envelope and I gave it to the player. And every week he came out, he opened his book, and he took his character sheet out, and he put the letter in front of him for
Yeah.
like 3 months. And when he finally opened it, because he was like the combat character, and he had to ensure that the group lost. And it all worked out. There were some bad ones. Anytime you can make a player, not a character, but like a player agonize over a choice.
The Black Lantern was how Scales of Justice, so like from the Rod and Ring story, died.
Yeah.
Because his wish was to save his universe and bring it back. So, but the deal was he and his nemesis both had to die in like a year and a day.
Yeah.
Because this is basically a fairy tale.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a nice scene at the end when basically he.
Like you basically had to go to Gentleman Jack and were like, so it was easy when he first made the choice because he was like, this guy, I hate this guy. I was like, coll, because I'm going to spend the next year and a day making you fall in love with this guy. And so then Ben said the last episode, or last session, just like,
Yeah, it was like one of the tears. Yeah, so he kills him and then falls dead, over the body.
Yeah.
And then his universe is born again, so.
Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up? Any final stories you guys want to share? All right. Well, I just have to say it has been a joy to be able to tell stories with all of you and share them with the chat. So wherever you are, if you can, raise a glass to all of the stories we get to share with each other. We will be back next week with our Christmas episode, A Christmas Kaiju.
Next Christmas, we all have to come as in character as our favorite character we've ever played.
I feel like the Bens have a leg up on all of us.
Yeah.
But I will say, we are going to, many of you may know that the inaugural show, the show that kicked off all of this, was the Iconic Podcast, where we talk about all things 13th Age. And this last season, we've done something different. We've talked a lot about Gumshoe, mainly because 13th Age is in a period of transition. There's not a lot of new stuff. 13th Age 2nd edition is launching next year. And so we didn't know what to do with the show. It's the foundational show for Iconic production. So what we decided to do is once a month, starting when the new season kicks off, which I believe is the third Sunday in will probably be the third Sunday in March. We're going to actually stream live play of the 13th Age 2nd Edition playtest, and we're going to have some favorites, some new players, and we may be able to rope in one of the actual designers of 13th Age. And so we're going to use Foundry, we're going to do it all up, we're going to edit the podcast, we're going to put music under it so that when the podcast goes out, it's nice and tight. You're getting just the meat, and I will be running it. I'm looking forward to it. So that's going to be our new show that we're going to be launching in March of this year. You'll be able to see it live with video only on the Sunday that it airs and for a week after, and then it's gone forever. You will only be able to watch it or listen to it on the podcast. So I'm very excited. Hopefully everyone here will be able to make special guest appearances for a month or two. So, with that, I would like to thank everyone for a wonderful year of gaming. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I am JM. This has been an Iconic production, and these are the gamers that I get to share stories with. Have a good one.
Happy holidays, y'all.